Okay, confession time. I don't like to be sad. I have a hard time with this feeling. My personality is that I'm an optimist and I always want to find the positive of any situation that's happening. I'm an eternal optimist and I just can't help it. But you see, this can actually be a bit of a fault because if I'm only looking at the world in optimism, I'm never really seeing the world and people's experiences for how they are. Life in 2020, it's sad. It's messed up. It's upside down. There's a global pandemic. There's sickness. There's societal ills. There's huge political problems happening. There's division. There's a long list of things that are just not cool and not good about life today in 2020. Well, this week we're going to talk about lament. This is Discover Transformation week 6, and we're going to explore this topic of biblical lament. What does that mean? Let's turn to the book of Psalms. And Psalms is a poetic book, and much of Psalms is written by King David, one of Israel's kings. And there's a lot of lamenting that happens. It's a very human book. So let's look at Psalm 13. It says, "How long, Lord?" That's how it starts. "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts? Day and day after day have sorrow in my heart. How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer me, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." Biblical lament this week. You see, most of the poetic books of the Bible, there's a big chunk of poetry and narrative and historical references in the Bible. A lot of these poetic books, they contain this biblical lament. You see, the fullness of life as we know it, it includes joy, it includes pain, it includes hardship and trials and suffering. This is human experience in this world because there is sin and there is brokenness. And so we as humans, we need to process this somehow and we need to do something with it. And so the biblical answer is lament. We see that in Psalm 13. I'm guessing that David wrote that psalm. I don't know if with certainty, but I'm going to say that he did. And so we see in this psalm that he is first turning to God. He is giving his attention and his frustrations and his fears and his worries to God. He is telling God what's on his heart and what's wrong with the world around him and his concerns. And then at the end, he is trusting God with those things, trusting in God's character, trusting in God's goodness. So the writer, he turns to God, he tells God what's going on, and then he trusts God. Turn, tell, trust. Something simple for us to remember as a biblical lament, as a prayer to God. And you see, my observation is that people will typically fall into one of a few traps when it comes to the grief and the sadness of the world and how we experience it. First, we have the eternal optimist, and this is me, just viewing life in an only positive lens and not having room in my view for there to be negative and hard things. Two, we have people who would seek to control everything because life is hard and grief. So I'm going to control everything and just be in control as much as I can of everything, which is not really possible. Third, we have people who just want to escape it or numb the grief and the pain of the world through substances or other means of escape. Even sports can be escape. And finally, we have people that just maybe fake it till they make it. They put their head down and try and plow through every circumstance of grief and hardship and trouble that happens in life. Well, let me propose that other way, that biblical way of lament. A prayer of lament is turning to God, telling God about what's going on, the hardships, the ills of society, the problems of the world, and then leaving that in God's big hands and trusting God. And so why can we do that? For me, I've learned as an optimist, it's that to see the world as it is And to be like Jesus is to really experience that full range of emotions. And the Bible, it tells us the end of the story, that one day God will make all things right, that one day God will make all things new. In Revelation, it says God will wipe away every tear. And so when we trust that that story is going to come to fulfillment, and that's our hope, that God will make all things new, God will fix all the brokenness of the world, and that God will fully dwell with his people 24/7. And that's our hope. So a few discussion questions for us this week on Discover Transformation. First is, can you relate to any one of these tensions? These eternal optimists, these fake it till you make it, the controller, the other one, whatever it was, escaping it. Can you relate to any one of those? Is one of those your tendency? And number two is, are you lamenting anything currently? Just lamenting COVID or lamenting way of life or hardships, and maybe you want to share that in our group chat. So look forward to the dialogue. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.